Has Bruce Wayne's secret identity as Batman been outed to the new woman in his life, and if so, how will it end up affecting his family? Meanwhile, over at Marvel, Norman Osborn is at a major crossroads in his life. Is he a spider? Is he a goblin? Will any of it matter? Well, we'll find out together in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 21. And finally, as a special bonus this week, we're also going to be taking a closer look at Absolute Superman issue number 16. Hawkman has blown into the Man of Steel's life, but is he friend or foe? We'll find out together, shall we, as we dig into 3 of the biggest comics on the shelf this week. So then, as we pick up with Batman, we are still dealing with the fallout of the previous issue. In his haste, Damian Wayne accidentally ended up outing the fact that Bruce Wayne was his father to Dr. Zeller, Bruce's date for the night. And oh boy, have things gotten really awkward between the two of them. I mean, it could be worse. Despite being really smart, Zeller has seemingly not made the connection yet that Bruce and Batman are the same person. And I mean, it makes sense. There's a lot of Robins out there, and they all gotta be someone's children, and she didn't exactly have the best read on Bruce at the end of the last issue, so she's not jumping to any conclusions right yet, though she still could. What makes this extra funny, though, is that the one thing she does end up saying is, geez, I just don't trust you as a parent right now, letting your son run around and do that. What am I supposed to do? Talk to Child Protective Services? That's just gonna make Batman angry, and he's gonna solve that problem with violence like he does everything. Wow, first Bernard calls Bruce out for potentially abusing Tim, now Dr. Zeller is calling Bruce out for potentially abusing Damian. I like that this is becoming a running joke now.
I did not hit them, I did not. It's bullshit, you're tearing me apart, Dr. Zeller.
And I'm only half joking about the whole being torn apart thing, because when Bruce does come home, he has some very harsh words for Damian, who attempts to apologize, but is actually shocked and taken aback by just how mad his father is in this situation. Scenes like this are always super affecting to me when you remember that despite how old he acts, Damian is still very much a child. And this is really one of those oh-so classic, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed, I thought I trained you better than this. Now, as bad as things are going for the Bat family, they're worse for the Gotham gang lords. They just left their meeting with the Minotaur, and understandably, they are scared absolutely shitless by the guy who is currently controlling all their ill-gotten gains, while also kidnapping and holding hostage important people in their lives just to really show how serious he is and how he is not one to be messed with. Though, as we learn in short order, the Minotaur isn't the only supervillain with his fingers in the pot right now. Remember those cycle ninjas from the previous issue who tried to kill Dr. Zeller? Well, yes, they were sent by the Yakuza, but only because they were hired by Dr. Hugo Strange to take her out. No doubt Hugo is still pissed off about how bad Dr. Zeller made him look on television. So much to the point, Hugo Strange is ready to go to war with the whole damn underworld just to let his rage out. He's created a brand new batch of monster men, and you better believe they're absolutely raring for a fight. Now, elsewhere in the city, we check back on in with Hudson and his journalist friend. You'll remember that they have cell phone footage of Commissioner Vandal Savage tampering with evidence. Normally, this would be an absolute A-bomb video, but unfortunately, Jake, it's Chinatown, I mean Gotham Town, and because of that, none of the actual papers are brave enough to touch it. It's because of that Hudson and Boilermaker decide to hit up Harvey Bullock, the last honest cop in Gotham City. Though even Bullock himself is pretty damn scared of what the video could possibly mean, especially considering one of the cops involved in that shooting from a couple issues back had his neck broken in the hospital, meaning that they just lost a very important corroborating witness. Now, over at the port, which you'll recall in the last couple issues we learned is a major hub for all of the Gotham gangs, one of the Yakuza's operations gets attacked by the Monster Men, who in this situation just so happen to look like roided up Jokers. And I mean, if you are making Frankenstein monstrosities, there probably are a lot of spare Joker gang parts floating around, especially at the rate that Mr. J executes his own people. A poor secretary ends up getting caught in the crossfire, but thankfully Batman makes the scene to save her. We get a really awesome action scene wherein Batman showcases more of his cool tech. In this case, it's the Bat Blades, electrified gauntlets on his arm, that cut through the Monster Man like a hot knife through butter. Hey, Batman might have a no-kill rule, but these things are technically dead already, so he can absolutely go go all out whenever he wants on them, and it's a-okay. Sadly, this victory ends up being very short-lived, as at that very moment, Vandal Savage's masked, heavily armed, pseudo-judicial mercenary force shows up to absolutely riddle the building with bullets. Batman makes a very quick escape, calling in the Batmobile to take out the shooters, so that he may slink back to the cave, these armed mercenaries being a problem for another day, just one of many problems that Batman is having a hard time solving as of recently. And oh boy, the hits just keep on coming, and they don't stop coming, as at that very moment, Batman is met in the cave by Tim Drake. He's out of the hospital, and it would seem all that time laid up has given Robin ample opportunity to think. He talks about early on in his training when he would run the rooftops and watch people from afar, that at a certain point he gained the ability to know when people walking together were in love simply by their body language. Tim asks Batman if he could imagine that, a love that you could see from the rooftops. It's a love that Tim feels that he has right now with his partner Bernard, someone who he desperately does not want to hurt with his double life as a superhero. Tim has a really tough choice to make about the rest of his life right now. Either he breaks things off with Bernard and continues his work as Robin, or he retires and makes a real go at attempting a normal life. And you know what? This really ends up being a super sweet scene, especially with Batman's own fatherly response. He says, if not for love, then what is even the point of putting on costumes and going out at night to fight injustice? He says that Tim is the bravest man that he's ever known, and that while he is always welcome to return to the fold, part of him hopes that he actually doesn't. That maybe he'll actually be the first member of the Bat family to really and truly get out. Ah yes, I see it's time for another classic blank no more storyline. I don't believe for a second that Tim is actually going to be gone, even though the book does do a pretty solid job selling you on him choosing retirement and a happy life. I mean, why would they have gone out of their way to redesign his costume going into this brand new series if they were just never going to use it again, I ask you? Now, while that was a wonderfully sweet moment between father and son, the energy between Tim and Damian is a lot different. Tim tries his hardest to let Damian down easy, saying, look, just because I won't be a Robin anymore doesn't mean we're any less brothers. We're still gonna be friends, we're still gonna hang out and do stuff, but in classic Damian fashion. When dealing with bigger emotions than he's used to, the former assassin tyke responds with aggression. You're a quitter, you're a deserter. I'm not even gonna miss you, I'm totally not crying on the inside right now, and I'm not being extra mean because I'm mad at myself for failing earlier or anything. So yeah, needless to say, this was a very long night in Gotham for absolutely everyone involved, and as the main part of the comic comes to a close, we're actually treated to a really wonderful set of panels wherein we see a bunch of different characters sitting stone-faced. Little do they all know how absolutely connected and overlapping their lives and issues are right now. Oh, but we're still not actually done yet. You'll remember in the previous issue, the only reason Bruce went on a date with Dr. Zeller was to try and feel her out to see if she was actually committing illegal experiments on the patients of Arkham Tower. Well, as we join her, we see her once again tinkering with the Helm of Storms. It would seem that she actually is testing it on an inmate, but surprisingly, she's actually getting some very good results. At first, we only see their dialogue as text, green font on a black background. This person seems polite and actually interested in Zeller's life and her date with Batman, but who could this mystery patient be? Well, I don't think you'll be too shocked to discover as this comic comes to a close, it's actually none other than the Joker, being kept alive in a tank, but also made seemingly more sane than ever before thanks to the Helm. Now, that's Batman for you, but over in the pages of Spider-Man, things continue to look dire for Norman Osborn and the assembled Spider family. You'll recall in the last issue, the Goblin Slayers had attacked the Oscorp headquarters, and now a bunch of innocent people, including poor Aunt May, find themselves caught in the crosshair. Norman had taken a brutal hit for Spider-Gwen in the last issue, and it looked like that might have been the end of him. But no, he's fine, he just webs up his wound and he's a-okay. Norman takes this opportunity to showcase that he is actually still quite intelligent, going to Miles with a plan that he thinks will allow them to take down these killer robots once and for all. You see, Norman hopes that Miles can use his bioelectric powers like one giant EMP, shutting off the robots long enough for Norman himself himself to activate the building's countermeasure program. Now, this is dangerous for several reasons, not the least of which being that once Miles uses this attack, he's going to be incredibly vulnerable, so Norman better get the job done the first time, because if so, they're not going to have a second chance. Norman also makes a little crack in his internal monologue about how Miles calls this super attack max power, but that, hey, don't hold it against him, he's a child. This max power attack turns out to be exactly what the Doctor ordered, cutting off control from the Goblin Slayer's pilots just long enough for Norman to switch on the building's murmification security protocol. And what the hell does murmification mean? Yeah, I was at a loss too, and it's really weird for me to not know what a word means, but apparently murmification is a reference to those big kind of waves you see sometimes when birds all fly together in formation. Basically, he just flips a switch and the robots seemingly die because a bunch of air just moves through the room and kills them, but doesn't actually hurt the spider people or anyone else inside the building. Yeah, I do not understand what happened here at all, and the art does not help. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, okay, the Goblin Slayers have been defeated, so the story is officially over, right? Well, no, Roderick Kingsley actually ends up making good on his threat from the previous issue to go and try and kill Norman's grandson, Normie. Which, I wouldn't even be worried, because isn't Normie still Red Goblin? Isn't he hanging out with the Avengers Academy right now? Doesn't he have his symbiote Rascal to look out for him? Well, don't worry, because none of that actually ends up being important, as Norman swoops on in to make the save, armed to the teeth with Green Goblin weapons. A fact of which even forces Hobgoblin to admit, damn, that's pretty cool. And you know what? I'm actually going to agree here. Norman Osborn dressed as Spider-Man, flying on a glider, throwing pumpkin bombs. This is actually a pretty cool image, and the fight itself is genuinely well staged. I don't know if it's well staged enough to save this entire finale of this arc, but you know what? Still, cool is cool. It probably helps too that Norman ends up giving maybe one of his best speeches in his internal monologue. He says that he's so sick and tired of pretending to be someone else. Sick and tired of trying to find redemption where there is none to be found. Sick and tired of letting people down like Peter, who were kind enough to give him a second chance. Norman tried his hardest to be Spider-Man in Peter's absence, and all it brought him was pain. It's because of that he's going back to his roots, his anger, his shame. Doing what the Osborn family has always done, making other people hurt more than they've been hurt. Spider-Norman gets the upper hand on Hobgoblin, stealing his flaming sword, and for a second there you actually think, oh my god, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna have Norman absolutely murk this dude? Is this how they signal the return of the Green Goblin and Norman's reverting back to villainy? Only, no, at the last second Norman ends up staying his hand. He admits that he isn't a good person. That he might never be a good person, but as it stands right now, he still wants to try and be a better man than he was yesterday, and that includes showing mercy. Okay, now you're probably thinking the story has to be coming to an end, right? Only, no, remember Electo, the mysterious woman who brought together the Goblin Slayers in the first place before she ended up getting subsumed by Kingsley? Well, you might recall we never actually learned who she was under the mask. Well, we do right here, right now. You see, Electo actually came to protect Normie as well, and that is because he is her grandson as well. Yes, that's right, everyone. Electo, the founder of the Goblin Slayers, was actually none other than Emily freaking Lyman. Really, I ask you, really? Harry Osborn's often mentioned and even less seen mother was the true mastermind behind the Goblin Slayers? I mean, on one hand, it makes sense. If anyone hates Norman more than himself, it's probably his ex-wife. But man, is this actually kind of a disappointing reveal, if only because we know they're not coming back to this anytime. Man, they probably had a whole other arc of this story that ended up getting cut completely, and I am actually a little disappointed. This is like one of the coolest ideas Joe Kelly has brought out in his Spider-Man series, and to think that this is all we're going to get actually bums me out a little bit. Norman ends up passing out due to his fight-related injuries, and when he comes to, his ex-wife and Kingsley are long gone. Womp womp. He returns home to lick his wounds and take stock of what exactly has happened in all of this time, and wouldn't you know it, it's at his absolute lowest, Peter Parker ends up coming in through the window. You'd think the original traditional Spider-Man returning home would have more questions about Norman wearing his costume, but he really doesn't. Norman actually breaks down in tears, embraces Peter, and says he doesn't know what he did, but that he tried his best. And you know what? That's actually a pretty solid summation of this entire Norman as Spider-Man storyline. I don't know what I did, but I tried my best. And with that, everyone, we finally come to Absolute Superman from this week, and oh man, does this one start off with a bang. We actually flash back to the 1940s, where we are introduced to a young Dr. Carter Hall, Indiana Jones-style archaeologist who is currently in Kahndaq investigating the tomb of Teth Adam. Yes, that Teth Adam, as in Black Adam. The hieroglyphs in this tomb end up telling one hell of a story too. Apparently, the ancient Egyptians were met by green men with purple pants and 3 dots. Holy shit, Brainiacs, really? Did I also mention that this little excursion just so happens to be funded by the Lazarus Corporation, because of course Ra's al Ghul would still be alive at this point in time. It's Carter's partner who ends up pulling a total Belloc, hoping to steal the treasure of the tomb for himself, believing that the Nazis would pay a higher price for all of this than Lazarus would. Even if that means having to kill Carter to do so, the man who would be Hawkman defends himself, picking up a staff on the wall, or is it a mace? It might actually be both. In doing so, imbuing himself with amazing power that he uses to crush the head of his betraying partner. Well, I mean, Hawkman might be bad in this universe, but at least he agrees that Nazis are worse. Now, it's from there we jump on back to the present. At the end of the previous issue, Hawkman had made his existence known to Superman, and if you're like me, we all thought the same thing. Oh, they're totally gonna fight now, right? Only, no, Carter ends up using a completely different tactic against Superman. He comes at him as a friend, as a wannabe mentor. He says that they're not the only men in the world who can fly, that his weapons and armor are made of alien nth metal, and that there's probably a lot that he and an alien like Superman could actually end up learning from one another. Assuming that is that Superman is actually willing to trust him. Now that's not all we got going on in this issue either, as back in Metropolis we see the feds have managed to seize everything belonging to Ra's al Ghul, including some of his dastardly little science projects. His daughter Talia al Ghul sends a detachment of peacemakers to try and get it back, though they end up completely bungling the job, and one poor schmuck gets himself absolutely doused in a bunch of purple chemicals labeled Project Parasite. Keep that in mind, because that's going to be very important later. Now back over with Hawkman and Superman, Carter keeps trying to make his business pitch to Clark, which isn't easy to do because Superman keeps flying away every 5 minutes because someone out there in the world needs him. Hawkman says that he's been around for a very long time and that he's seen a lot of wannabe superheroes come and go. People with names like Wesley Dodd the Sandman, Iron Monroe, and even Oliver Queen, all people we know from that special issue Hawkman actually killed. Carter says that he's here to try and put Superman on game, that if he wants to make it in this world and keep helping people, he's going to have to drop this feud with Lazarus. He's going to have to learn how to play ball with them and the other powerful people who truly control this world, lest his superhero work is going to be just an elaborate form of suicide. Of course, Superman has super morals, and as such, he doesn't want anything that Carter is selling. In fact, he actually tries to turn this whole devil on the shoulder thing around by instead opting to drag Hawkman with him to Metropolis, where the next big crisis is taking place. And hey, speaking of Metropolis, in this issue, we actually get a chance to check on in with Lois Lane. Today, she starts at the Daily Planet. Oh, but wouldn't you just know it, this brand new job isn't anything it was cracked up to be. Apparently, in the Absolute universe, the papers are suffering just as much as they are in the real world. We meet Perry White, who's been running the paper's desk for 35 years. Today, he was fired, though, because his bosses got 2 young up-and-comers to take his job for peanuts. Uh-oh. Meaning that it looks like Lois and Jimmy are going to have to do their brand new jobs without the veteran guiding hands of Perry. And wouldn't you know it, it looks like their big first new story is already breaking in the skies above Metropolis. Superman and Hawkman show up just as their conversation really truly begins to break down. Carter realizes that he's not going to get Superman to see his sense unless he beats the ever-loving crap out of him first and foremost to assert dominance. Superman might be incredibly tough, but Hawkman certainly has the edge on him when it comes to experience. Let's also not forget that he has been hunting superheroes since the 40s. Then of course course, you have his nth metal weapons and armor, which might be alien or might be magic. We're not exactly 100% certain. Either way, the fight is actually a lot more even than you might think. We're treated to an absolutely eye-poppingly beautiful page where Superman manages to rally back and knock Hawkman through a series of parking garages down into the depths of the subway. Before their fight can enter round 2, though, we're reminded that Superman didn't actually come here to fight Hawkman. He came here because there's another problem developing right now, and that would be a massive rampaging parasite. And oh man, I love the absolute design of this classic Superman foe. He actually looks like how a parasite would look under a microscope. Super gross, A+. Oh, but we're still not done yet, because as the comic comes to a close, we actually check back on in with Brainiac. You'll recall at the end of the previous issue, he had actually looked up Lex Luthor at home, and now he's masquerading as a government agent attempting to recruit Lex Luthor for a special Superman project. Only here's the rub though, Luthor is just so damn happy and so damn fulfilled with his family, he couldn't possibly ever leave them even for all the money in the world. Wow, a happy and self-actualized Luthor. How is that more terrifying than anything else? Brainiac doesn't take any of this kindly either, saying that he needs the Luthor he's been hearing about from other universes, the one who wasn't afraid to dog-walk gods and write his name in blood all across the galaxy, even if that means using his chainsaw hands to threaten his friends and family into making Luthor come with him. And so there you have it, everybody, a smattering of some of the biggest superhero stories you could be reading right now. As far as Batman goes, I enjoyed this issue, but I couldn't help but feel like this was more of a breather issue than it was actually a kickoff to a brand new story arc. Obviously, one of the best things about this book is that Matt Fraction is spinning a lot of plates at once, and so I guess you kind of need issues like this to remind people what exactly is going on. I know the idea of Robin potentially stepping away and retiring is going to make a lot of Tim fans unhappy, which, I mean, you think at this point in DC Comics fandom they would probably be used to it. I will give Matt Fraction the benefit of the doubt, though. I think he is working up to something. He did such a good job with the character early on in the first arc. I really do feel that this whole retirement angle is just that, an angle, and that he will eventually need to come out of retirement and reassert himself as a major Robin. If nothing else, it does actually lead to some pretty good familial drama, especially between Tim and Damian, two characters who I can't really remember the last time they really hung out at all, so to have them have this kind of frosty relationship where they are kind of jockeying to see who's the favorite son, who's the beloved son, especially in a time where Damian himself kind of screwed up. The Joker reveal is also pretty big too. I get the feeling that that's going to be a super showy issue. I have already seen the cover and solicitations, and it looks great. Overall, I would give this one a 7.5 out of 10. And then we got Spider-Man number 21, and man, I know I'm probably sounding like a broken record at this point, but geez, just so many great ideas of this, new status quo for Spider-Man, trading off between Norman and Peter in space. Just feel like they've been left by the wayside and that we're never going to actually see any of this to fruition. This really did end up being an experiment with not a lot of payoff, and that's really lame because there was some great ideas in here. To think the best idea this story came up with in its final moments is to bring in Norman's ex, Harry's mom. I think there could have been some great material there. I think they really could have actually said something profound and interesting about forgiveness and redemption, etc., etc. In the end, all we really end up getting is a fairly cool fight with Norman and the Hobgoblin. I will admit I did enjoy that for what it was. In fact, it was so good it almost ends up, washing the bad taste out of my mouth of the previous issue. But hey, we're done. We're back to business as usual, and we're going full steam ahead on another big symbiote story with Death Spiral. Yay, I guess. I would give this one a 6 out of 10. It's not the worst. I've certainly read worse Spider-Man. There were, some redeeming qualities to this one, but, just not near enough, unfortunately. By far, though, I think the strongest of the three I read this week would have to have been Absolute Superman issue number 16. Jason Aaron continues to move from strength to strength with this series. It's actually really awesome to see that the first quote-unquote superhero that Clark meets in this universe is actually the deeply morally compromised Hawkman. I've always really liked Hawkman. I've always liked Carter, and it always feels like the books have struggled to find a place for him, so I like this idea that he is getting this big spotlight shone on him in in this book, where he is essentially the devil on Clark's shoulder, trying to get him to play by the rules of the Lazarus Corporation and the true masters of this universe, only to have Clark end up, you know, absolutely rebuking him early on, leading to a cool fight that shows, hey, Superman is really strong, but he also has a lot to learn, and, you know, the challenges that he's going to be facing in this world, if he wants to continue to be a symbol of hope, that if he wants to continue to lift people up, they're only going to get harder, because they're only going to keep throwing guys like Hawkman at him over and over, so he better get ready for it. Overall, I would give this one a very well deserved 8 out of 10. Solid action, great character reveals, just good stuff. And there you have it, everyone. That's 3 really great books on the comic shelf right now. I hope you read something good this week. I hope you liked the video, and get ready for Sunday, because we're going to get to do it all over again.